My friend, thanks for joining. I have to re-edit and start from scratch with yesterday video because I got a really bad echo in background, and so let's do it. We are talking about web application security. So what you do from a web application security perspective, you do think about CV, you think about secure programming, you think about supply chain with third-party libraries and the dependency. You think about the tool that you are using across your pipeline, CI/CD, and you are going to look after your developer to have that kind of culture on secure programming, so input sanitization and everything else. But on the infrastructure side, that is part of my strength, most of the time the two big defense are an API gateway and a web application firewall. If you look at the last 10 years, the web application firewall from something that was tuned ad hoc for the application got resized in something that does have only an OWASP Top 10 signature and isn't for sure good at all, because back in the days you were doing the learning mode tuning based on what you had, and it was done. API gateway is another big topic. You should load the Swagger file automatically. You know which parameter are expected, but we all know how GraphQL is changing the way of attacking the API. So, is it okay to use OWASP Top 10? My opinion is that OWASP Top 10 never oversold themselves, and so they told us from the very beginning that they didn't want to be nothing else than a snapshot. But if I have to choose from a web application perspective, I do like way more CWE. Maitre, when is compared to the top 10, is way more specific. And if you compare the two, you'll see how many gaps you are going to have. So here we go. So if you check the categories let me remove my face because I'm not a nice fella and I'm in the middle. So if you are looking at the categories, you'll see that in the CVE there are way more categories, more way of. For example, you know that everything as a memory buffer is also specific to the language. You do have an understanding, if you see directory traversal, that it can be also control on the Apache configuration on the underneath infrastructure. You see unrestricted upload of file with dangerous types. And actually, if you are going for a top 10 WAF signature, you not always see the CWE reflected. And the analysis that I get out of a CWE is way more accurate because it is giving me a better idea. It's still a bit weird that I don't see API specific kind of things. It's true that obviously all server side of API is included in CWE. What I'm trying to say and the message is, if you have a web application firewall, work ad hoc for your application and don't let just a third party to do the rules for you. And it's true that you need a reference. It's true that most of the web application firewall are double layer because you can have one on CDN and one on-prem. It's true that sometimes people use straight on the proxy, reverse proxy request in terms of filtering, but we should have a look more deep to CWE, see the error is extremely wrong. If I have to be critical with OWASP Top 10, and the reason why I think they are really going out is the fact that they look into CVE. CVE was never perfect. We are all in agreement about that. It was a big bottleneck, a lot of allocation of CVE numbers that later on didn't get any follow-up for month and month and month. And a lot of vendor reserving CVE, but actually not logging stuff. And we are seeing vulnerability with a CVE number of a year before, finally getting public knowledge the year after. Disclosure process is not part of this talk. It's more to explain something to you. Cloud resources are not using CVE. So if you find a vulnerability and you talk with Microsoft and it's not about a product that gets installed, there is no CVE. So if you are looking for the error and the problem that you can have in a cloud service provider, there is no CVE. And so what's the point to do all this analysis just on CVE most of the time? Soon, when the on-prem will be way, way, way less relevant, we will find that actually CVE almost disappeared, because if cloud service don't provide that, and one of the issue, not having a CVE, you don't have that sort of transparency also on understanding the time window of a data breach, of a compromise, because there is no change log on a cloud service provider. Don't forget that if you are not a public entity using certain type of cloud reserved for them. And so that is the big issue. You don't have reference, and it's almost becoming more useful to see an HackerOne tickets than actually looking for known vulnerabilities. So that's not okay, and the industry will find a moment where actually is losing the minimum traction and minimum visibility of what was going on. That's my point. So fair play to OWASP, amazing project, everything is brilliant. Top 10, it's okay too. I am still puzzled because API isn't there, and actually most of exploit are API. I'm still puzzled that there is no match with CWE, and it looks like we are looking at two completely different pictures. The trend and what I see here, for example, the cross-site scripting move to the injection is okay. I do understand the challenge also due to the 10 items that need to be sorted, but we need to look more deeply on what's the problem with web application security. We will find ourselves in a situation where actually A/B testing is becoming more and more common, and A/B testing will find out that you could have an estate that is for a portion vulnerable for the time of A/B testing, and in a dynamic kind of fashion, you need to keep track of that too. And so the industry in web application is not having only the issue of the public repo, libraries, dependencies, and all other stuff. It's also about the pillar and the foundation and what we always look at for information. I am expecting, as I said in another video, a lot of exploitation on client side with WebAssembly. That's my opinion about it, and especially now that other languages can easily use it, I'm expecting that to go for upper and upper. Also because VDR is becoming smarter and smarter, and the browser is multi-platform. We see campaign like Magic Cart caching a lot, ransomware is a big issue, and code reuse at the time that you can just use a snippet that you already wrote on Python can become popular. So keep an eye on your web application posture. Think about your web application firewall. Never forget the API. Think on the new attacks on GraphQL and keep it up. You are trying to do your best. That is important. Due diligence is the key core factor. Take care. Thanks for having me and drop me a message at any time. Take it easy. Cheers.